Did this attack force encounter any fierce resistance from Iran? Let me find out the truth. At exactly 8:45 a.m. on August 3, 2025, calm seas off the Strait of Hormuz turned into a war zone. An American Arleigh Burke class guided missile destroyer, temporarily detached from the USS Gerald R carrier strike group due to a critical rear engine failure, floated in isolation awaiting technical support. Aboard were 287 U.S. sailors, most unaware they were minutes from disaster.
Mission update. If this story matters to you, power it forward. We're pushing to 100,000. Hit subscribe, tap the bell, and drop a like. Tell us where you're watching from. Comment your country below. Enjoy the rest of the video. Back to the mission in 3, 2, 1.
First strike. Iranian surveillance misjudged the scene. From a distance of 31 miles, commanders concluded this was a lone, lightly armed vessel, perfect prey. Their decision would become one of the costliest mistakes in Iran's naval history. The strike came without warning. 5 Shahed 238 suicide drones, each with a 66-pound warhead, swarmed in from multiple vectors. Seconds later, a Red 500 guided missile traveling around 3,500 slammed into the ship's aft propulsion section, igniting 14,000 gallons of fuel. The blast registered a magnitude 2.1 on coastal seismographs, sending steel and debris over 300 feet into the air. 2 American sailors died instantly. 1, just 19 years old. 5 others were badly wounded, including a chief petty officer suffering 78% burns. Smoke blackened the sky, but the stars and stripes still waved above the wreckage. Distress call, 8:47 a.m. Iranian commanders celebrated, unaware the destroyer belonged to America's most advanced carrier strike group just 90 nautical miles away, and every ship in that group had heard the distress call. Don't leave yet, because in less than 2 minutes, the Gulf will feel the full force of America's wrath. At 8:47 a.m., 2 minutes after the blast, the USS Gerald R. Ford's Combat Information Center received the encrypted distress signal. Ship disabled. Casualties confirmed. Missile strike. Origin, Iranian corvette. Silence. Then a voice like a steel blade. Rear Admiral Douglas Keller. We respond immediately. Launch and tasking. Within 90 seconds, 2 F-35C Lightning II roared off the deck at 120. Deck launch speed noted. Bound for the crippled ship's coordinates. Their mission? Identify the enemy, assess the damage, and stream targeting data back to the fleet. From a nearby forward base, 5 A-10 Thunderbolt II lifted into the sky, each armed with a GAU-8A 30mm Gatling gun and GBU-38 precision bombs. The GAU-8A fires 3,900 rounds per minute, enough to shred a warship in 15 seconds. Trailing them, 5 UH-60 Blackhawks carried 50 Navy SEALs and medics to extract survivors and secure the scene. Corvette destroyed. 9:12 a.m. At 9:12 a.m., the F-35s locked eyes on their target. Without radio chatter, the A-10s dove. Thousands of armor-piercing rounds ripped into the Iranian ship, followed by 2 2,000-pound GBU bombs that punched through the midsection. The detonation threw steel fragments half a mile. The vessel didn't sink. It disintegrated, vanishing into fire and smoke. But this was only the opening act. The real blow was yet to come. Please support us by liking and subscribing to the channel. War Council, 9:20 a.m. Now comes the real blow for Iran. The Iranian corvette's fiery destruction had barely faded from the horizon when the USS Gerald R. Ford's War Council assembled at 9:20 a.m. Rear Admiral Douglas Keller's voice was calm, but laced with steel. They crossed the line. We take out their launch site completely. Within minutes, satellite surveillance locked onto the origin point of the earlier missile strike, a heavily fortified Iranian base 172 miles inland, just west of Bandar Abbas. This wasn't an ordinary outpost. Intelligence confirmed it was a Tier 1 UAV and missile hub, housing ROD-2 surface-to-air systems, Burke 9 missile batteries, and at least 200 IRGC personnel. The base also controlled multiple launch pads for Shahed series drones, all hidden beneath reinforced concrete shelters. Operation Judgment Spear, 10 a.m. At 10 a.m., Operation Judgment Spear was cleared for execution. The strike formation was a show of precision warfare. 10 F-15E Strike Eagles, each loaded with 2 GBU-53B Stormbreaker smart bombs, capable of hitting a moving vehicle from 45 miles away with less than 3 feet of error.
6 MQ-9B Reaper drones tasked with live targeting and laser designation, 5 Switchblade-600 loitering munitions programmed to destroy radar arrays and sand launchers before the main wave, 3 EA-18G Growler aircraft designed to blind Iranian radar and jam communications for the first 90 seconds of the assault.
Strike, 10:41 a.m., 10:49 a.m. The attack began at 10:41 a.m. The Switchblade struck first, diving at over 100 miles per hour, each carrying a 33-pound high-explosive warhead. Within 45 seconds, 3 Rod-2 launchers and 2 long-range radar dishes were reduced to flaming wreckage. Operators scrambled in confusion, firing blindly into empty air. Next, the MQ-9B Reapers moved in, their sensors painting invisible laser beams onto hangars, fuel depots, and command bunkers. High above, the F-15E descended from 35,000 feet, releasing 20 Stormbreaker bombs in staggered formation. The effect was devastating. A fuel depot holding 120,000 gallons of aviation fuel erupted into a fireball 400 feet high. The command bunker collapsed inward after a direct hit, killing the senior IRGC officer on site. A drone storage hangar was obliterated, destroying at least 12 Shahed UAVs before they could be launched. In 90 seconds, the base's operational capacity was erased. Radar screens in Iranian command centers went dark. No outgoing signals, no defensive counterfire. By 10:49 a.m., every U.S. aircraft had returned to safe airspace. Final assessment: 28 Iranian combatants killed, all military personnel. $300 million in missile and UAV assets destroyed, 0 civilian casualties. Counterattack forms, 12:15 p.m. But in Iranian command centers, the silence was short-lived. Plans for a desperate counterattack were already taking shape, and the U.S. strike group was ready for them. Before we get to the Iran counterattack, tell me where in the world you're watching the video from. Iran moved from shock to vengeance in hours. By 12:15 p.m., U.S. satellites and the E-2D Hawkeye on patrol saw the pattern. 3 Su-24 Fencer fighter bombers lifting from southern Iran, each lugging air-to-surface missiles built to crack ships wide open. At the same moment, sonar techs aboard the USS Thomas Hudner picked up the faint rhythmic thrum of a Fate-class attack submarine sliding in at 11 knots, trying to knife beneath the carrier group's shield. Admiral Keller didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Engage all threats before they're in range. Aegis and air intercepts. The Aegis combat system took over, an orchestra of sensors and fire control. The SPY-1D radar aboard the USS Normandy painted the Su-24s at 280 nautical miles, long before Iranian radar could see the fleet. Through cooperative engagement capability, the picture flowed to every ship and fighter in the group, fusing into a single perfect track. 2 SM-6 missiles ripped from their vertical launch cells, accelerating past 2,500. 19 seconds later, the lead Su-24 vanished from the plot. 4 seconds after that, the second jet disintegrated in a cone of debris over the Gulf. Anti-sub action, 16 minutes. Below, the ocean held its breath. The Fate class crept toward torpedo range, nose up, sonar pinging in passive intervals. The Navy didn't wait. A P-8A Poseidon stitched the sea with 16 sonobuoys, triangulating the contact in under 90 seconds. An MH-60R Seahawk arrived with dipping sonar to lock the solution. The Hudner answered with a RUM-139 VL-ASROC, kicking a Mk-54 lightweight torpedo into the water far ahead of the sub's path. The Mk-54 ran in at 40 knots, homed, and detonated within 50 yards off the bow, close enough to shear fittings and trip breakers without breaching the hull. For the Iranian captain, everything went dark at once. Lights, propulsion, pump control. With emergency batteries bleeding fast and a second torpedo already queued, the sub blew ballast and backed out, wounded and humiliated, trailing bubbles toward shallow water. Time from first detection to last splash, 16 minutes. U.S. casualties, 0. Enemy aircraft downed, 3. Submarine mission, abort. The lesson. On the Ford's flight deck, sailors paused just long enough to breathe. The lesson was simple and terrible for any adversary. A U.S. carrier strike group is not a single ship. It is a worked fortress. Aegis doesn't blink. SM-6 cleans the sky. Poseidon, Seahawk, and Mk-54 make the deep a hostile place to hide. And the men and women running it all have learned from decades of hard seas to do the job without shouting. Second node, decision and strike, 1542. The radios went quiet. The sea settled. But the mission wasn't finished. Intelligence still showed a second Iranian node feeding targeting data to the coast. A harder site, deeper defenses, closer to civilian infrastructure. The next move would have to be surgical and unmistakable. One more strike, and the Gulf would fall silent. The Iranian counterattack had failed. 3 jets lay at the bottom of the Gulf. A submarine limped home, half crippled, and the U.S. fleet sat untouched. But inside the carrier strike group's command center, no one mistook this for the end. Reconnaissance from RQ-4 Global Hawk and P-8A Poseidon patrols revealed something far more dangerous. A second Iranian control hub near Bandar Abbas, hidden among warehouses and civilian docks. It was feeding targeting data to Iran's remaining missile forces. Leaving it standing meant inviting another strike. Rear Admiral Keller issued the order without hesitation. We shut them down permanently.
Final strike, 1542 to 427 duration. This was to be a precision blow, not just to cripple capability, but to make them think twice for the next decade. The strike package was formidable. 8 Fa-18E Super Hornets from the USS Gerald R Ford, each loaded with GBU-31 20,000-pound JDAMs for hardened structures. 4 MQ-25 Stingray drones for mid-air refueling. 3 EA-18G Growlers to smother radar with electronic noise. 2 MQ-9B Reapers for real-time laser designation. At 1542, the Growlers went in first, flooding Iranian air defense channels with false targets and ghost echoes. The Bandar Abbas radar operators were effectively blind. 30 seconds later, the Reapers began painting critical structures. The command bunker, antenna arrays, and a fortified hangar suspected of housing ballistic missile guidance systems. The Hornets came screaming in at 600 knots. Hugging the sea until the last moment, then pulling up to release. 16 JDAMs dropped in staggered sequence, each guided by GPS and laser to within 1 meter. The impacts were surgical, yet devastating. Reinforced concrete peeled away like paper. Steel towers folded. The bunker roof caved in under the combined force of 64,000 pounds of explosive power. A secondary explosion tore through the dockyard as hidden fuel tanks erupted, sending a mushroom of black smoke 800 feet high. By the time Iranian emergency crews reached the site, the entire command complex was nothing but a smoking crater. Time from first jamming signal to last detonation, 4 minutes 27 seconds. Civilian casualties, 0. Iranian military losses, undisclosed. Operational control in the region, gone. Aftermath. As the strike group regrouped in formation, Admiral Keller addressed his officers quietly. Message delivered. We're done here. In the Iranian command centers, the silence that followed was telling. No more drones. No more missile launches. The Gulf returned to calm, not by chance, but because every potential threat had been erased. For the men and women of the Gerald R. Ford strike group, it wasn't just a victory, it was a statement. The U.S. Navy doesn't start fights, but it always finishes them.